Hey folks, how's it going? It's the Dave and Dujanovic Debrief every single day here on Facebook Live. We like to take our hottest topic of the day and hash it out for another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, we're definitely in the 11th inning on this discussion. It's another discussion about baseball. This time, it definitely was the hottest topic of the show for sure. It was that photo in the Herald Journal in Cache County area that I think probably, Dave, it was taken at a sneaky cam hidden inside somebody's sunglasses of a youth baseball game, a rogue youth baseball game, where it didn't seem in the photo that all the players were social distancing from the umpire and the coach, and it's spun up into a controversy.
Is there such thing as a rogue youth baseball game? Is it illegal? That I think that's when we see the headlines and it says illegal baseball game. Like, really? Is it really illegal or just frowned upon?
Well, after that photo hit the paper and after we talked about it on the Dave and Dujanovic show, of course, Cache County attorney James Swink joined us live on the show. And we asked him, is this going to be prosecuted for some reason because of the fact that it appears there could have been some violations of the executive order that was laid out by the governor to social distance 10 feet or more? And he's indicated that the case was looked at by the sheriff's office there and possibly turned over, or maybe turned over perhaps to the city attorney's office. And so it's kind of left me wondering why. But it also begs the question. The governor's order is in place for just a few more days through May 15th, where he's asked sporting activities to cease while we try to figure out the orange kind of code that we're in right now. We're in code orange as we move hopefully towards code yellow to continue to loosen restrictions. Can't we just wait a few more days and honor the governor's wish? The guy stands there at a mask almost every single day at a press conference asking us to just social distance, wear masks, and just follow a few rules for the next little while.
Is there any guarantee, though, that this is going to end in a week or a month or 6 months from now? And as we were discussing this story, it was interesting. One of the coaches of that game called us up and said, I got something to say about that. And I think a lot of us have looked at it and thought, oh, what were they thinking? Well, they were thinking, you know what? Gyms are open, Walmart's open, restaurants are open, you can dine in and sit down. There's a lot of things we can do. Why can't we go play a baseball game? And I don't think it was malicious. And as Coach Nick said, it wasn't trying to make a statement. They were just trying to do something nice for the kids.
Should we listen to what he had to say on the show today? Let's play that audio.
At a practice baseball game, we did our best to make sure that we were following the social distancing guidelines. We had the kids stay out of the dugouts. We expressed to them that they should try to stay 6 feet apart at all times and, not give high fives, not give, pats on the back. We encouraged them to follow all the rules that were in place. We didn't dress up in uniforms. We even, we were very thoughtful about how we were going to go about abiding by the social distancing guidelines that were in place. It's disappointing that you try to do something good for your kids and you get criticized or called out in the newspaper because of it, or some anonymous complaint is filed by a guy that, sneaks up on the ballpark and takes pictures. Gyms are open. Walmart is open. Adults can go and freely go about their business, get their exercise. But when it comes to our children, there's not a lot of outlets for them. And we're doing our best to give our kids, an outlet to get to have some social interaction with some of their friends at a practice baseball game. We did our best to make sure that we were following the social distancing guidelines. We had the kids.
Yeah, they tried. And as is kind of the case, doesn't matter what your intentions are. It matters what people's perception is. And we couldn't tell from that photo how far apart they were. Maybe they were 6 or 10 feet apart, but people's perception is, what are you doing? Are you crazy? This is illegal.
So our Facebook Live is all about you. What do you think? Leave us a comment right underneath this Facebook Live, and Dave and I will read the comments over the air right here on Facebook. What do you think about this? Do you think that the coach should have just held off and waited a few more days to see what the governor does in terms of his order not to play sporting events within 10 feet? 10 feet. 10 feet of each other.
Martha Black says,
not a big
no.
deal. But tell us more than just no. Tell us why. Give us more information. I really want some thoughtful comments here, because so often I've noticed on our text line as the show, Dave, and even on Facebook, we just get these one word, you're crazy, no way, he's out of line. Tell us why. Give us more meat to your comment, because I really want to get into the minds of our listeners to see what you're thinking. Should kids be out there playing baseball right now, even though the governor, what kind of message are we sending our kids? If the governor has asked us to do something just for even a few more days, why can't we do it?
Well, and I think it's still ambiguous enough, the instruction, that people start rationalizing it in their own mind. Oh, he is opening up basketball courts. Well, then obviously we can go shoot some hoops. And if we're shooting hoops and staying 10 feet apart, then we obviously can share the same basketball. I mean, you can see where these leaps go, because they haven't gone into the detail of every sport. They've opened up, again, as we've discussed, gyms and salons, and we can sit down and have a meal at a restaurant now. Things have loosened up quite a bit. And some people are just never going to be comfortable with any color other than red right now, because they're just very, very worried about it. There's others that think it should have been green weeks ago. So how do we balance when we have some wiggle room in some of this instruction?
I just don't want to take it back to the governor's executive order that says 10 feet apart. Nothing under, nothing over 20 people. Can we not just give our governor the courtesy and wait a few more days? Or do we absolutely have to say, yeah, our kids are going to play baseball this weekend? I don't care what the governor says. I don't care how often he stands up there in that mask, all those press conferences that he's held. I don't care how tired he is of repeating himself. I'm going to do it anyway. Brenda, or excuse me, I have to get my reading glasses on. Brendan Powell, thanks for your comment. I love the fact that it's a lengthy comment, not just a yes or no. Absolutely, they should, with baseball. I guess you mean play with baseball. There's no reason not to. Honestly, for every other sport, it would be perfectly fine as well. Just look at the NBA. Rudy and Donovan both had it, and look at how many people they came in contact with throughout multiple games, and look how few cases there actually were in the NBA. I don't know how many cases there were. Dave, you're a huge sports fan. Do you have any idea how many?
I don't have a number, a handful. We would have known. I mean, we would have known if it was rampant in the NBA. We've known, Donovan Mitchell had it, Rudy Gobert had it. So yeah, the NBA is, I think, opening up tomorrow, Debbie, on May 8th. They're going to start practicing again. So we have to look at it and say, okay, well, if the Jazz are going to start playing, basketball is far more a contact sport than baseball is. So why can the Jazz start practicing? Why can they open up training camp? Why can they do some of these things? But if you're talking about a 10-year-old playing baseball, oh, heaven forbid.
Isn't there a difference between an adult playing a sport and a 10-year-old playing a sport? I mean, I've watched a lot of 10-year-olds. I've watched a lot of 10-year-olds. I've sat on the sidelines through 3 kids play softball and baseball. And Dave, I have to tell you, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, they're all over the place sometimes, especially if it's a rec league. If it's not a super league, no offense to rec players, it's nothing. It's just that the super leagues play 100 games or so a year. isn't there a difference between an adult playing a sport and a child playing a sport? And I'm again going back to what message are you sending your kids? And you have kids, Dave. If the governor's telling them one thing and dad's telling them another.
Well, I'm not sure that these people thought that they were necessarily flying in the face of what the governor said. The instruction is under 20 people, maintain social distance. And as this coach was saying, they weren't allowing them to high five. They spread them out in the dugout. I mean, if you're looking for perfect compliance, you don't get perfect compliance from adults. You don't get perfect compliance from schools. You don't get perfect compliance from anybody.
I still feel like you're talking around the issue, and that is the governor of the state is asking us to do something. And it would appear that there's groups of baseball and parents out there that are telling their kids to do something else. So I've kind of always been on the side of, look, the reason that we have police officers is because if you go over the speed limit, then you're going to get possibly pulled over because you're going to put other lives in danger. If somebody has asked us to do something in a position of authority, we do it. I mean, I'm wearing a mask all around the place. I don't look good in one. It doesn't feel comfortable on one, but I'm wearing it. I'm staying home more because that's what we've been asked to do by our governor and the CDC. Cut down on the number of errands that we have to do. I mean, I do miss running to the grocery store every day. No, I don't. But you know what I mean? It's like, well, why would I say it's okay then for my child, if my kids were that age, to just go out and play softball or baseball? I just disagree. I think we're just not maybe seeing eye to eye on this, Dave.
Well, and I think the thing is it doesn't say you can't play baseball. It doesn't say you can't play softball. It's speaking in generalities. So your interpretation may be different than my interpretation, may be different from Coach Nick's interpretation.
Okay. Can I read from the governor's order that was just sent to us? So here it is. Outdoor recreation guidelines clarify that no one should participate in sporting activities that require teammates to be closer than 10 feet from one another.
Yeah, okay.
So you're saying baseball doesn't require that. So like real.
I'll follow up on that same order, Deb. It'll say, do not engage in sporting activities, as you said, but the very next line says skills development and conditioning activities are allowable under social distancing guidelines.
Well, and so you're saying baseball, this particular field, they were social distancing at this particular game, practicing.
Strictly and perfectly. Yeah. Was it practice?
It'd be impossible.
I didn't see it. I'm trying to interpret one photo that doesn't show you anything.
I get that. But look, Dave, and I said this on the show, I really feel like baseball parents, and I was one for a long time. I feel like now we're trying to bend the rules of baseball to make it seem like it's not a social distancing issue. It's not, the kids are all throwing the ball around the field and everybody's touching the ball in between plays and as they're making the play. It's like now we have all new rules for baseball that just, quite frankly, it feels like everybody's trying to be deceptive about what baseball really is.
Does practice, is that different for you than a game? If this had been just a practice versus a game.
Well, it was a practice game, right? We want to be clear of that, about that. You mean the girls going back out like softball today, this afternoon?
Insane.
I'm trying to look for more comments. Caitlin, our producer behind the scenes, helps us with these, and she's awesome at it every day. I'm having a difficult time with the Wi-Fi here in the building. Again, it's my phone usually. Can you throw some of the comments up on the screen in front of Dave and I so we can say it? Dave, you want to go take a stab at Pam?
Yeah. Pam Johnson said, as we loosen up things, I think the governor is waiting to see what repercussions has happened, negative or positive. Proceed with caution, baby steps, which I think is what's happening. We're anxious. No, there's no question. We are overly anxious, Debbie, and I agree with you there. We are overly anxious in a lot of these things because the numbers just have not proven out to be devastating in certain communities. Cache County is has had 45 total cases. 45. And that's a large area and very populous. 45 cases, and to shut down everything, you can see why people don't buy into it fully. The experience in Cache County, the experience in Davis County, and the experience in Salt Lake County are totally different. You've got, thousands of cases in Salt Lake County, 3,000, 4,000 cases in Salt Lake County. There's 300 in Davis County, and there are 45 in Cache County. You can see why people are extremely frustrated in some areas with the lack of response and with an over-response.
Here we go from Ginger Meyer. I would rather see kids play sports or anything at this point so they don't stay home and get depressed, which will lead to bigger problems. Yeah, I mean, I think with kids staying home more, that would lead to big problems. Ginger, 100% agree with you. But I got to tell you, there's also times that we need to be very proactive as parents and make sure we're not relying on coaches to get kids out in a baseball field in a pandemic. And I see a lot of families in my neighborhood. I've never seen, by the way, Dave, so many bikes. I think everybody went out and bought a bike for the pandemic. I see families bicycling together, and it's awesome. I see them walking together. I see them on hikes together. I really think this is also an opportunity to take a step back. And as a baseball and softball mom who traveled the country with two of her kids, I'll tell you, you can go over the top with this stuff. We did. And we will admit that now, looking back. We were at all the games and we were spending all the money, and the kids were on team buses going across the country, Dave. So I do look at this as, look, this is a very short window of time. And I know you're not going to believe me until your kids are in their 20s. You're not going to believe me until they're in 20. This will go like that. And then they're grown and they're moved out of the house. So I really hope that a lot of parents are doing what we didn't do many times, was put the family unit over the baseball and the softball game. And we've talked about that many times over the past couple of years. What should we have done instead of being addicted to baseball and softball as a family? Should we have taken a trip? Should we have camped more? Should we have just spent more time playing games at the kitchen table? Yes, yes, and yes. Do that.
Yeah, I think you can do it all. No, I think you can do it all. I think you can be a baseball family and have everything else as well. It's that moderation in all things.
Yeah, right. But I think a lot of parents aren't doing that. I see it and I saw it, and I know what it's like to be in that kind of that tsunami of sports. And you can take, this is a moment that, it's as awful as it is. It's also a moment to find a silver lining, to spend more time as a family unit doing things together and getting them out of the house. That's my opinion.
Elsa Aitken said, I think it was a great idea for the coach to do this. A lot of kids are getting so depressed by these guidelines, and it's not anyone's decision to make, but the parent. If the parents are okay with it, why is it bad for anyone else?
Well, if you think that it's okay to do something other than what the governor and the CDC has asked, and there's always going to be a parent out there or somebody out there, Dave, who's going to say, nope, it's my decision. I'm the parent. We see that with vaccinations. We see that with schooling. We see that in this case. We'll make the decision. And look, you do have to do what's best for your child. I understand that. But I also think you have to teach your child to do what's best to be a member of a community.
We also allow it in vaccinations and schooling. We allow the parents to make those decisions, even if we disagree with them. Mm-hmm. Laura Tingy said businesses are open because of the need for economic recovery. Kids, sports, and play dates are something that we can wait on. Conditioning with teenagers is different than planning a game where you can't stay apart. I don't think games and practices are the same thing. When I read the governor's directives and explanations, I think there's some wiggle room there. I don't see any difference between me hitting fly balls to my softball girls and people going into the gym and hitting the weights, or running on the treadmill. I don't see any difference in that.
We also know that through our conversation with the county attorney from Cache County who called into the show today. And by the way, we're on Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11. And boy, did we have a packed week. It was amazing. Yeah. One show after the other, one amazing phone call after the other. But when Cache County attorney James Swink called in, he did tell us that Cache County has actually petitioned the state to move to yellow. So move from orange to yellow, even before the state makes a decision as to whether it'll move to yellow in the next week or 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. We'll continue to keep everybody, listeners, updated on KSL News Radio as well. Do we have any other comments, Caitlin? Go for it, Dave. Jamie
Aldridge said, if you look at the lack of regard of our public lands and what happened in southern Utah, I'm assuming she's talking about Gunlock State Park, where everybody overran the state park because of the beautiful waterfalls. I feel the baseball isn't near what a contact sport or what has happened with spending time in the outdoors. I guess it's all about perspective. Mm-hmm. Jamie, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. I hadn't thought about how wild it is at our state parks. We've seen videos of people hiking that are very close. And, again, if you're looking for perfect response from hikers and joggers and strollers and baseball, softball, all these, you're just not going to see it. We haven't seen it all along. So do we need to crack down on it and start enforcing it? There's no way they're going to. We have seen this from the protests that we saw in Salt Lake. We've seen it from, as we talked to the district attorney in Salt Lake and the lieutenant governor. They do not want to start cracking down, arresting people, inciting people. There are ample opportunities to have done so, and they haven't.
Just to point out to Jamie's comment, what happened down in Gunlock today, as we learned on the show, when Eugene Swalberg, the public information officer for the Utah State Parks Department, called in, they've shut off those waterfalls down there. And when I asked Eugene, I said, does this have to do with the lack of social distancing that was going on last weekend? That made national news, by the way. He said, yes, 100%. So they shut down the waterfalls. Yeah. In response to the lack of social distancing that was going on at Gunlock, which of course is in southern Utah. So I guess the worry is, and what I hear a lot of people saying is, look, if we can't handle just taking this in baby steps, is there a possibility that we're going to go back to red, or that they'll do things like what they needed to do down at Gunlock, shut down the waterfalls? We got one more comment here from Heather. Dave, go for it.
The hikers are probably in the same families. Maybe not. Let's not just assume they aren't following social distancing recommendations. Maybe they are. I can tell you the photos that we've seen from Gunlock as they were kind of huddled around. That's the largest family I've ever seen in history. I mean, it was 1,000 people, right? I mean, there's no way. But I mean, some, of course.
Yeah, and then search and rescue from Washington County, said, look, we couldn't even get our search and rescue crews through there. So they obviously ended up shutting down the falls, and we didn't get a real good sense of whether they're even going to turn those things back on, Dave.
Yeah, didn't sound like it. It sounds like we're taking away the family vacation. You can't get it back.
Well, you asked a great question on the show, just going back to Gunlock for a second or two, which was, how in the world do you turn off the falls? And it turns out,
I know, right?
Turn off the falls.
They turned it off. It was like a faucet. Righty-tighty, they turned it off. There was another comment I wanted to get to. Who was it? Kristen Maddox. Why are the pools allowed to open, but we can't play a baseball game on a 2-acre field? I tell you this, Kristen, this is probably my number one problem. How in the world can you open up those pools and shut down baseball fields? There is nothing grosser than a public pool.
Kristen, can you continue that comment? Because I am curious as to what public pools are open. Traditionally, they open around Memorial Day, right? And we're not, I don't even know what day we're in anymore, but we're not quite to Memorial Day. We got a couple more weeks, but I'm wondering if she knows of a public pool that's open in her community or somewhere. Do you know of one in your area, Dave?
The South Davis Rec Center, I think, is open.
Is it?
And then it has indoor pools. It can't be more than half capacity. That's what Salt Lake was.
Right.
But I can tell you, half capacity is hundreds of kids.
Yeah, those pools, Dave.
Debbie, I'm with you. I mean, I've been in those pools, and you're telling me that a baseball game is problematic?
has a good point. It's like, but I do wonder if some of those are not opening for a few more weeks, if we're going to be in yellow by then. And even then, I'm not 100% sure. Look, I did stories on pools that would pass around this cryptosporidium, which back in the 10, 15 years ago, I had to learn how to spell that word. Like, yeah, kids, we're not going to any more public pools. Pools are out. Here we go. Kanab City is opening their pool next week. We are having rodeos this weekend, and they did last weekend as well. I wonder if you got a lot of visitors going down there, because I mean, I for one love rodeos, Dave. I know you don't know that about me.
No, I love rodeos, but who doesn't like rodeos?
Rodeos and demolition derbies. Those are totally my thing. I made my kids do the mutton busting. Did your kids do the mutton busting?
No, they would love it though.
Yeah, we made them do the mutton busting. Man, that toughens up like that. Especially when the first one goes and they fly off it was like,
they go flying.
Yeah, exactly. Any other comments? You have a better than I am today.
Jameson Furnace, Home Depot and Lowe's are packed with people. Baseball games are fine. Let the kids play. I know my boy has been practicing for months in preparation for Super League. Nice. The kids mentally need this.
Yeah. Jameson, I'm curious, where does your son play Super League? Is it up in the Cache Valley area? Is it down in Salt Lake County, Davis County? What team does he play on? Give us a little more details. I'm a big Super League mom. My son's been out of it for a few years. He's long since graduated high school and went on to college. But Super League was a big part of our lives. I'm really hoping this is just a short window. And I can't even remember how many games he played. But if it wasn't doggone close to 150 games a year, Dave, they've still got a lot of game left in them over the next several months.
I think being outdoors, this is Doris Johnston, I think being outdoors is great. And I think baseball with distancing can work now. And maybe each county can decide. And there's definitely no way to be perfect on the guidelines. We have 0 cases here in Price. So maybe.
A big part of Super League, going back to that, is that you travel around and you play in these major tournaments that last for, 3 or 4 days. I think they'd start on a Thursday. They'd wrap up by a Saturday, sometimes a Sunday if we were out of state, particularly over in Denver, up in Boise. We played a lot of Sunday games. And you mix with a lot of other teams. I mean, we were playing teams from Australia, and we were playing teams from, not only Australia, but other countries, other states. And I wonder how regulated or loose that's going to be going forward, because this pandemic changes the game, doesn't it, for that? I mean, do you want your kids playing with a team that's coming in from New York?
Right.
And they do. They travel in from all over the country.
Yep, they travel. They'll go to the Cooperstown. They'll fly. They'll bus. They'll jump in the family RV. There's a lot of the competition leagues are where you see a lot of out-of-state travel going on. But
there ain't no social distancing on the baseball field.
Not on the team bus.
Nah, no way. Sorry, you were going to say.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, we played just last year. Pocatello to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does. You travel all over.
There's Jameson. We're in Davis County. He's in your neck of the woods, Dave. Yeah. But potentially play all over from Idaho to St. George. Right. Yeah. In fact, there were many times we'd travel up to the Cache Valley area with CJ's team to play up there. One of the most amazing tournaments, just an amazing baseball mom moment. He got the save in a tournament against an Australia team up in Boise, Dave. And I promise you, I was like, these kids from Australia, I mean, I think they were pulling up with their kids. They were like these tall, they looked like they were 25 years old, and he was 18. They were 18-year-old, a team out of Salt Lake City, and we ended up winning that game. But it was amazing. I love the memories. They're awesome. That's why I'm hoping this is such a short window and such a narrow window of time for all those baseball parents.
All right. Well, thanks, folks. We appreciate you joining us on the Dave and Dujanovic Debrief on Facebook Live. We love to dive into our hot topic. We'll be done with the baseball story. We'll be done. We've
on Monday.
We've beaten it to death.
Cross on Tuesday. I hope you have a fun weekend, Dave.
Hey, you guys, you as well. Caitlin, thanks for joining us. She's our producer. We appreciate her running all the comments and the technical aspects of this. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. See you guys.
Have a good weekend.